Hello, good evening, all our connected friends and family out there. It's a lovely Thursday evening, and typically on a Thursday at 6 p.m., guess what's happening? The conversation live coming to your space and coming to your context. And I'm your host, Sola Adesoye. It gives me great joy to be back this Thursday for an amazing and truly amazing conversation. And if you have seen the flyers and you've seen the videos, tonight's conversation promises to be truly an amazing, amazing one. And so right now, it's going to do you a lot of good. And your friends, and all the people that you're connected with, it'll do you some good right now to share this. And just basically, look, copy the link, share it with your friends. You may need to put a call to someone. You may need to send somebody a WhatsApp message to tell them something is about to happen. And all this is coming to you from the Lighthouse Church. This is an expression of the Lighthouse, and I know it's going to be wow today and really going to be a wow time. Tonight, we are focusing our attention upon you as an individual, and we're looking at mastering the talent of your business and the business of your talent. It's going to be such an amazing time, really amazing time tonight. Not just because of the topic that's before us, but because of the guests that we have. And honestly, we're honored and privileged to have such a unique person here. I'm going to read a few things about him so that you can connect with him. So we have today Steve Harris, and he is fondly called Mr. Ruthless Execution. And I'm sure he's going to be explaining what that means to us when he comes up. He's a trusted authority in the fields of life and business strategy, a highly sought after management consultant, and chief executive officer of Education. Steve is a sought after mentor speaker by many organizations and is known as a turnaround expert. He's an inspirational speaker, a corporate activator. Steve is also an author and has published a number of books, from college dropout to corporate sellout. Honey, While We Pour. I mean, that's a solid one. And from friend to fiance. He is happily married to Emma Harris Steve, and they're blessed with a daughter. I mean, it gives me great joy and great privilege and an honor this evening to welcome to the conversation Steve Harris. Steve, hey, Steve, really
So good
good.
to see you, sir.
Amazing. It's such a joy to have you on the conversation.
Thank you for the
Let
very
me
kind
thank
privilege.
you. Let me thank you for um, just saying yes to the invitation to impact and touch numerous lives and just to bring change to so many people. Here is Steve. Um, he's looking very ruthless in so many ways. Ruthless execution. So let's start, Steve. How did you get to be known as Mr. Ruthless Executor? How did all that come into being?
Well, first off, thank you so much for the amazing privilege to be here. I consider it an honor, and to be invited to your platform is just a great blessing. So, first off, thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. My name is Steve Harris. I'm a life and business strategist, and a lot of people call me Mr. Ruthless Execution. And that came about because I'm very, I'm a licensed, certified, life coach, and also a motivational speaker. And one of the things that I recognized that I would organize events, seminars, master classes, and people would get a huge wake up call. And maybe like a couple of months later, I would have a meeting with them and say, hey, so how was the session? What have you done with what you learned, and people would give me excuses. I'm like, well, I'm still I'm still trying to get my ducks in a row. And I just felt like, no, 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 no. How come people are not getting things done? And I recognized that there was an execution gap. So when I started coaching people, I started instituting sanctions for non-performance. So I would say to them that, listen, if you don't get anything done with the things that I tell you, you've wasted your time, and more importantly, you've wasted mine. And my time is valuable. So I would give people targets or goals to it, because it's your goal. You know what I mean? So why would you just lay back very complacently and not achieve it? So I would say to them, if you don't achieve this goal, what are you going to do? And they'll say, oh, I'll feel bad. I'm like, okay, let's make it more tangible. If you don't achieve this goal, you're going to give me money. How much are you going to give me? And many times, humans choose the path of least resistance. So they would choose the smallest amount of money. And I'm like, no, that doesn't make any sense. You've got to choose an amount that will be worth my while and will pain you if you gave it to me. And then many times they would go for, let's say, 200K. So I'm like, okay, fantastic. So now we've weighed the opportunity cost of this goal. If you don't get it done, that means you're losing 200K. Deal? Because again, I find people set goals, but there's no opportunity cost. There's no consequence. And usually they will think I'm joking that, oh, Steve is not going to collect the money from me. But I do. I actually do collect the money with sadness of heart, with a really wide smile on my face. And so after that, people started saying, oh, Steve is ruthless. Don't go and meet Steve to get stuff done, because Steve will make you do it, and he would sanction you if you don't get it done. So that's where the legend began.
Well, that's amazing, and I think it makes a lot of sense, really. It's about value, and it's about paying for fundamentally what you really want to get, and forcing you to place a value on knowledge and information. Here's something I think that's critical. Your story is packaged in a book, from college dropout to corporate sellout.
Yes, sir.
And so can you tell us a little about that? Were you a college, I mean, looking at you, you don't even sound like a college dropout.
Well, it depends on the college you dropped out of school from.
All right. So tell us a little about that. I'm sure someone out there will be inspired by that story.
Yes, I am a college dropout. Technically, I'm a two-time college dropout. And I didn't drop out of anywhere fancy, not Harvard, not Stanford, Yale, Tulane, none of those schools. I dropped out of the University of Benin, Uniben. I got kicked out of Uniben in my second semester in my third year. The long story short, the abridged version was I had gained admission to study industrial math. I really wanted to study engineering. Well, technically, my parents wanted me to study engineering. I didn't really have an aptitude for numbers. So I didn't make the cut. So they gave me, you know how it is, they gave me industrial math since I couldn't make engineering. And unfortunately at the time, and I hear it still is, my department was adjudged as the most corrupt in school. So back in the day, if you had an F and you wanted to get an E, you would pay 5K. If you had an F, you wanted to get a D, you would pay 10. Just choose your grade, multiply the number of steps, multiply by 5,000. Just a very simple mathematical equation. And long story short, in my second semester in 200 level, I noticed that I was put on probation, which was odd because even though I wasn't the most diligent of students, as most college kids aren't, I did apply myself. So I'd noticed that I'd have very, very wonky grades, like 4 over 100, 11 over 100, 13 over 100. I remember, walking to my course advisor's office at the time, and I said to him, sir, if I was blind, deaf, dumb, and stupid, there's no way that I'd get 4 over 100. And I remember him saying to me that, okay, so tell me why you think so. And I said, well, you said if we bought the handouts, we would have 20 marks. Excuse me, sir, I have handouts. That's 20. I said, you said if we have 75% attendance, we get 15 marks. I haven't missed a class this all term. That's another 15, so that's 35. In the last continuous assessment over 20, I got 14, so that's 35 plus 14, that's 49. So the least I should get in this course is a 49, which probably is an E or a D. But you missed out the 90. You gave me 4. So what's going on? And then I realized that, so he eventually told me that I flunked because I was very close to a girl. That quite a number of the lecturers had their eye on. And sir, true. I was not, as in, no, there was not. It was purely platonic. I don't know why people don't believe me when I say that, but it was enough to get me kicked out of school. And so that I got kicked out of Uniben first. That just messed with my mind for a while. Then, of course, I tried to see how I could get back. Eventually, I had to go write JAM again, and eventually gained admission to Madonna University, a private university in the East. And I spent about 7 months there. I think I was 26. I couldn't handle it anymore. My siblings my younger ones were working. My friends had passed me by. And here I was in 100 level with 18-year-old boys and 17-year-old girls. So I dropped out again. So yes, that's the abridged version.
It's amazing how, very, very amazing story. And I'm sure there are people out there who find themselves in that same context that you once were. So how were you able to make the migration, turn your life around literally? Because let me put it this way, you're a big guy now. You're quoted by Forbes to be one of the top 100 people anyone should listen to on Twitter. So how did you turn all of that around?
I know it sounds cliche, but it truly is the grace of God. My parents had always thought I was the one who was most likely to succeed. Unfortunately, life threw me a bunch of curveballs. And I distinctly remember where I decided that I was going to make a difference out of my life. Being frustrated by, getting kicked out of school just messes with your mind, messes with your psychology. And I remember that, money has a voice. And unfortunately, this is, Africa, Nigeria. And usually the kid that has the most money is the most important child. And I had literally no money. And my younger sister was working a job at a bank and moved out of my parents' house and ultimately became the breadwinner, so to speak, moved out of my parents' house, bought a car, moved to her own crib. And I remember one day she invited me over to spend the weekend. And I remember walking into her apartment, and the first thing my little sister says to me is, take off your shoes, get your shoes off. So I take my shoes off, walk in, and I'm looking at her beautiful, sprawling apartment. It's beautiful. High definition TV, DVD, VCD, audio CD, all the letters of the alphabet. She had them all. I didn't have none of those things. And I remember she was cooking, and in the middle of the conversation, she looks at me, she says, my friend, I don't even know what the heck's wrong with you. Be a man. And, previously my little sister was giving me an allowance. So the first month she gave me 10K. We bless our beggars can't be choosers. The next month she gave me 5K. I couldn't ask her, where's the other 5? By this time, she told me she wasn't giving me any money. And it was such a rude awakening that I said to her, I remember saying to her that I will show you. Now, that statement led me on a path of self-discovery, but in reality, it was self-discovery through initially what I might call vices. So, full disclosure, I tried almost everything that a broke kid could do that did not include murder, kidnapping, rituals, and prostitution and drugs. But I tried almost everything. Just to be able to make money, and none of them worked. So I was very bad at being a good guy, and I was very bad at being a bad guy. So I was just caught in between and in betwixt. And long story short, I go to church on Sunday. No, I go to church on Wednesday, not because I'm interested in the word or, getting just spending time with Jesus. I was fighting with God. I was like, Lord, you screwed me over. You just ruined my life. I was following you on campus, and look at what you've done with my life. So I remember going to church only for the reason that, because at this time I was working as an office assistant at a brand management company, and I realized I didn't have enough money to get me home. So I figured if I could get to church, since it was a Wednesday, I'd find someone who lived in my area, and we could laugh, you know what I mean? I could just laugh or just hitch a ride, whatever, or I could just get enough money to just get me back home. But like I say to people, sometimes God changes the course of your life so that he can give you the cause for your life. And there I met an amazing gentleman, Sola Adesoye, and with a series of events, it was almost like that David and Jonathan thing, and the rest they say is history.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Let me take you on this. I've been waiting. You're an audacious guy. I mean, no doubt. I mean, you dared, and I like the part where you told your sister, I'll show you. You're going to see, and
Right.
eventually, you've been able to turn that story around. So here's a statement that is credited to you, and you said, "I'm the first coach you should have called to multiply your business profits, and the last coach you'll need." I mean, that's an audacious statement. So where's that coming from? How believable is that?
Well, we serve an audacious God. You know what I mean? We serve an audacious God. And to be honest, that script, that let me call it scripture. That statement is attributed to me, but I found it in scripture. Jesus was very audacious. He would say to the Pharisees and the scribes that, look, before Abraham, I am. He says Solomon in all of his glory doesn't have anything on me. He's not arrayed. You know what I mean? And they would say, where do you get this authority from? And I recognized that I wanted to be the guy who, I didn't want to be your first option. And to be honest, that statement came from the scripture, the story of Jesus healing with the woman with the issue of blood. And I always, I tend to, I do this thing called economic Bible studies. So I study the Bible, and somehow God gives me insights that are practical to either a business standpoint or an everyday standpoint that may be a little more left of field than most people are used to. And I said to myself, the Bible says that when introducing this woman, the Bible says that this woman had an issue of blood for 12 years, and she had spent all her living on doctors. And then she heard about Jesus. So in hindsight, even though they say hindsight is 2020, in hindsight, if she had gone to Jesus first, she would never have met Jesus. She would never have needed anyone else. So I wanted to be the guy that after you spent all your money on consultants, coaches, and they didn't heal you, right? You would come to the Jesus of this business. All right. It always gets me crucified. All right. Come to the Jesus of this business and then get the transformation that you seek. So for me, very well based in scripture. And by the grace of God, we've been able to back up our claims.
Oh, awesome. I mean, there's so much out there that really gives credit to the great work of transformation that you're doing. So, when it comes to mastering the business of your talent, and that's a critical area for you. It's a key area of expression for you. I know that you actually have an online course that focuses on that. Now, can you say a little what's the course all about? Because that's where you mentor people to master the business of their talent. Are you saying that identifying a talent is not good enough? What else do we need to do? Why do we need to master the business of our talent?
Oh, absolutely, Pastor Shala. Thank you. You know, the reason I say that, the Bible says that, we have treasures in earthen vessels. And for me, this course is really experiential because I had to go through it myself. So in 2010, I felt led to leave my job where I was doing very well as a highly paid consultant. And, I was led to leave. And for me, it was the worst time ever. I had 20,000 naira in my bank account the day I obeyed God. My wife was pregnant, which was amazing. My rent was going to be due in a few months, which was not so amazing. She had left her job also, and I was broke. So here I am sitting at home, waiting on God, so to speak. And, by the third day of sitting at home, we had exactly 17,000 naira. And here I am wondering, how am I going to take care of this family with only 17K. So technically I knew I had 17 days to go. So sitting down and, worrying, God put it in my heart that if you could make any amount of money in a year, how much would you like to make? And well, they say imagination is free. So I imagined 88 million there. I was like, well, Lord, I'd really like part of my inheritance that you have in heaven. So could you just give me like 88 million? So the next thing was write down your talents. What are you good at? What are your talents? What's your expertise? What are some of the experiences and skill sets you have? And put a price to them. So I wrote consulting. At the time I had consulting experience of about maybe 5 or 6 years. So I put a financial target, maybe 50 million bucks. I had this weird idea to write my book, From College Dropout to Corporate Sellout. It was still an idea. So I said, if I could sell 1,000 copies at 2,000 there, that's 2 million. So I kind of broke them down. But now, great, you've got 88 million there in heavenly places, but you've got 17K in the bank account. What are you going to do? But I found that over the course of that year, by honing in and looking at what I carried, I found out that people were asking me to help them using skills that came to me naturally that I didn't think were worth anything. People would invite me, so you speak so well, could you anchor my event? And I'm like, well, never say yes, never say no to what your gift can say yes to. So I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And I'd do it. And I found that I was getting paid. And in the 10-month period, I didn't earn the 88 million there that I planned. I made 17 million. I didn't have any staff. It was 100% legit, using my giftings and my ability. I made 17 million there. And I was like, oh, this is really easy. How come people don't know? Then I went into the Bible. I saw Matthew, I think it was Matthew 25, the parable of the talents. And I started doing research on that. And I was like, wow, God really wants us to prosper. And he gave each one, 5, 2, 1, according to the measure of their ability. And long story short, so I said, okay, well, rather than me start teaching this, let me do it again for another year and let me prove my concept. And the next year I made like maybe 53 million naira. And then I said, okay, great. Now I can start teaching this. And to me, to be honest, MBT, Mastering the Business of Your Talents, is a ministry. It's just helping people understand what God has given you and then help you create a business from it, trade it, and monetize it. So I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome. Well, when we get to the end of the program, I'm sure our viewers will want to know how, they can connect with, the online course and to get registered. So we'll still come back to that. But I want to take you on, the subject of talents, because there are people who are confused, and some people say, look, talents are God-given. Other people will tell you, as you journey along the course of life, you can develop talent. So
Right.
is there a singular definition, or is there a context that you're going to be, telling us that can help us define, talents? Because certain people just have a flair for certain things, and you could say that's innate in them. But then can we pick up talents along the way, or how best can you describe it to people?
Well, I think you're right. Absolutely. It's both. It's really contextual. So talents are God given, and then you can pick up abilities and skill as you go along the way. Everyone has talents, but not everyone has, skill. And the difference between talents and skill is talents comes to you raw, but skill is diligence, disciplined, and developed talent. You know what I mean? So everyone's got talent. You're great at something. You just probably haven't put in the work. You've not put in the discipline. You've not put in the dedication to, turn it around. And I also even recognize that, talents are a means of exchange. And, sir, when I was doing my research, thinking about, the parable of the talents, I grew up, I know a lot of your listeners and viewers and members are a lot younger millennials, but I'm a little older, you know what I mean? And I grew up reading books like my book of Bible stories, right? And when I would read, those picture Bibles, and I would see the talents it was given, and many times I felt the talents was just a few little coins, until I started doing some research, and I found that a talent in Jesus's day normally was either a block of gold or a block of silver, and it would weigh anything between 33 to 50 kilograms. in weight. It was that heavy. And then I realized that in Jesus's day, a man would have to work 16 and a half years to earn a single talent. So it wasn't like $100 or $1,000. You would work, a regular person would work 16 and a half years to earn a talent. A talent could pay the salaries of 200 efficiently skilled mercenaries on a seaboat for 1 month. So I recognized that this talent wasn't small money, it was correct money. And so at the time I was doing the research, I realized that a talent in Jesus's day was equated to 600, no, was equated to $1.3 million. So one talent was $1.3 million. Now let's contextualize that and bring $1.3 million times 470 naira. You know what I'm saying? Now you can imagine why the master was upset that somebody buried, let's just put 500 million in the ground, like some of our senators do. You know what I'm saying? And he did that. And Jesus was saying that the least you could have done is you could have put it in the bank. Worst case scenario, let it generate interest. So he didn't lose his capital, so to speak, even though there's time value of money. He didn't lose his capital, but he didn't make profits on what it was. And so for me, I recognize that many of us, irrespective of our faith, have great ability, but we're not turning it around. We're not adding value to it. And we go back to the dirt. And if you remember the story, the servant said, well, I know you're a hard man and you reap where you don't sow, but I was afraid. And I find that the reason many of us don't take those steps is because we're afraid. We're afraid we're not good enough. We're afraid it's not going to succeed. So I don't just talk about the talents. I talk about the business of it, right? Is it an economically viable quantity? How do we turn it? How do we market it? How would we, where's the money? You know what I mean? I'm 50% Igbo, so I'm like, that DNA is working. So I'm like, where is the money? So that's what I do. And, by the grace of God, I've been able to help a lot of people do that also.
All right. If you're just joining us, well, this is the conversation, and I've got Steve Harris. It has really been mind-blowing so far. I'd want you also to, just if you've got any questions, just type it in the space on our different platforms so that we can take a couple of questions towards the end of the conversation. Now, so back to you, Steve. Let me put this. So you've thrown some light and tried to define, talent for us. Is there a connection between your talents and your purpose as well? So are they intertwined? I've come to find out there are lots of people, especially within our context, who are trying to really find definition and to find purpose. So are they intertwined? Is there a connection between the two?
I believe so. I believe that your talents are necessary to equip you on your journey. Your talents are necessary for the environment that you're supposed to be thriving in. So I tell my students, I say, fish don't fly. Birds don't go to swim. Birds don't take birds don't swim. I say, put it in context. I said, fish don't take swimming lessons, and birds don't go to flight school. Right? So fish don't take swimming lessons. It's something that is wired inside of them. It's hot wired inside of them. Birds don't go to flight school. They know how it works. So, but when it comes to tying it with your concept of purpose, I have a little spin on purpose. And I say, don't focus too much on purpose. Focus on your assignments, and allow me to explain. And so give an example. When you go to maybe, secondary school, high school, right? Your purpose is to get an education, but your assignment is to pass year one. If you don't pass year one, you will not eventually achieve the purpose, which is getting a full-fledged education. So your talents help you find your assignment. So as you're maybe for the stage of your life, because we don't know, because for example, the Apostle Paul, right, had all these experiences and all these talents and all these giftings and the abilities, right? But in God's sovereign purpose, it was perhaps for him to be one of the major, diviners of the church doctrine, the whole New Testament, and the whole 9 yards. So maybe that was not a purpose he was aware of, but he treated each assignment, each stage of his life faithfully with the gifts and the talents that he gave. So my point is, right now, somebody is watching you and you're working a job that you think is a dead end job, and you're growling and grouchy and grumpy, as opposed to recognizing and saying, can I give the very best of my abilities to this? Because I mean, think about it. Joseph, I mean, we tend to think that our talents are only made for the good stuff, for the lights, camera, action. But Joseph had to display his talents being incarcerated in prison. I'm sure it wasn't stellar. I'm sure it's not like he had a executive prison or any. He was in the dumps, right? He was being beat up, and all sorts of things would have been happening to him. But he had to give the very best of himself in whatever season or environment he found. And it was in giving the best of himself. He could have just looked at the butler and baker and said, I beg you people that have eaten Egypt's money, all of you are corrupt people, blah, 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 blah. He could have, had an attitude. But because he recognized that they had a problem and there was something inside of him that connected to helping other people, he just decided to just give the very best of his expertise. And purpose, God, the sovereignty of God, everything worked together, and ultimately therein was his salvation. So we shouldn't just expect that our talents are necessary for the stage, the glitz, the glam, lights, camera, action. It's being and giving the very best of yourself in every environment you find yourself.
Right. You touched on Joseph's story, and that's a story that I love. I believe it's instructive for every believer and every child of God out there. Now, I wanted to ask you this question. Must everyone be an entrepreneur? Because when we look at the life of Joseph, right from when he was sold as a slave, we find him serving a greater cause, something bigger than him. Potiphar's house contextually was bigger than a slave.
Right.
When he was in prison, he was serving a prison system that was bigger than a prisoner. And then he ended up in Potiphar's, in Pharaoh's courts, serving a nation that was bigger than him. And so right through his life, he served something bigger than him. Absolutely. Now, there is the idea today that you can't make a success of your life and you can't deploy your talents appropriately except you own your own thing. You're doing your own business. Charting a course that you end up becoming CEO over. So in your experience and, from your own wealth of experience, what advice would you want to give to people out there?
I will say not everyone will have an entrepreneurial expression, but everyone has entrepreneurial ability, right? So you may not necessarily start a business, but you can use your entrepreneurial talents within a business. And those people are called intrapreneurs. So entrepreneurs go out there, they take the risk, they do whatever needs to be done. But you can also be an entrepreneur within an organizational setting, still being able to think creatively and do all the other things, but you're doing it within the context of, more formalized structure. So I believe that everyone has entrepreneurial tendencies. Not everyone can have an entrepreneurial expression like a business, because, it's easy to glorify, having your own business. But I've been running my own business for over 12 years, and I can tell you, I still get really ticked off when I pay salaries. You know what I mean? So, so it's there to recognize that you just have to find a place to serve. And I'm not even going to lie to you, sir, to be incredibly honest. Even before I started God had to tell me to leave, because as far as I was concerned, my purpose at the time I understood. I said, what God said to me was, I'm sending you to be the best number 2 to the best number 1. And that was my assignment. I remember before I even got married, not even my wife, my previous girlfriend then could not understand. So she would say to me, are you going to start a business? I'm like, no. So you're going to work with Fela forever. I'm like, so far, that's the instruction. I'm meant to be the best number 2 to the best number 1. And God had to give me a different revelation. And even when I left, I didn't leave to start my business. For 3 months, 4 months, I was just sitting to say, okay, Lord, at any time now, let me know what you want me to do, because I don't know what to do. So I see too many people who feel like, oh, so I've learned the ropes from the master or whatever, and I can go and replicate the same. You can try, but it's not for everyone.
So, I mean, it's exciting to know that you were mentored by Fela Durotoye and you
Yes.
served with him. How many years was that for?
I think I served. I served. Well, I'm still serving, to be honest. I'm a son, but I served for about 5.5, almost 6 years, give or take, about 6 years. 6 years.
Well, it's good to hear because I mean, for some people, they put a timeline. You just said God had to tell you to leave, and even when He did, you had to sit back to find some kind of definition as to what the next assignment was. There are people who would, I mean, find maybe God speaks to them and says, look, I want you to be mentored by this particular individual. And they kind of give God like a timeline
Right.
and they say, okay, it's got to be 2 years. In 2 years, I've learned everything I need to learn and I need to
Right.
jump out of the boat and go do my own thing. And it's exciting also to hear you say, even though you've left to begin your own expression, you're still being mentored by him.
Absolutely.
And the scripture that comes to my mind is um, the one that says, a son abides in his father's house forever.
Right.
So literally, even when you leave, the domain of your mentor, you're still within. So
Right.
even though you've gone out to find expression, you're still within that same context. You're going in and out. You're still
Right.
exchanging ideas
Absolutely.
and just moving in leaps and bounds. And fantastic. I just love what I'm hearing. And I'm sure everyone out there too is excited about what they're hearing. Now let's come to Nigeria because there are people who hold the notion that Nigeria is a hostile environment. I've heard a few of your mentees who have spoken about how attending MBT has really transformed their lives, and within 1 year they've been able to turn their businesses around. Some have said, "Look, I made 7 million in 1 year just attending MBT."
Right.
Is the Nigerian environment that friendly for talents and for expressions to thrive? What's your own take on that?
Well, full disclosure, I was ranting about Nigeria a couple of days ago, so please, nobody should check my Instagram, right? But I will say this, and this is something that Fela taught me. He said to me one day, he said, "The bigger the problem, the bigger the solution. The bigger the solution, the greater the value put on the solution. The greater the value, the bigger the money they pay you for the solution, and the bigger the money, the bigger the boy or the girl you are." So I'll say that again: the bigger the problem, the bigger the solution. The bigger the solution, the greater the value. The greater the value, the more money they pay you, and the more money they pay you, the bigger boy or girl you become. And I think that Nigeria is full of problems. It's full of problems. And every problem is an opportunity in disguise. But it depends on your level of thinking. You know what I mean? So if all you see are the problems and you are inundated by them and you're only in that place of complaining and complaining as opposed to recognizing that there's huge opportunity, then you would miss out on that. So while the environment may not be friendly, it creates, there's so many giants in the land that there are unlimited Davids that can rise. David does not rise without a Goliath necessary, and Nigeria has so many Goliaths. You know what I mean? And the people that I've been privileged to serve, well over 2,000, almost 3,000 of them, are entrepreneurs who run their businesses. Some bake cakes, some are events managers, stylists, all sorts of people, and they find that just by applying some of these things and not giving up, tweaking your marketing message, identifying the right paying customers for your services, creating some sort of marketing that makes you more attractive, right? They've been able to make money. The last, I'm presently working with 230 entrepreneurs at the moment. But the last class that we had about 200 entrepreneurs. And sir, in 5 weeks, they generated revenues of 756 million naira in Nigeria. 756 million naira in Nigeria, right? From their businesses. And for many of them, this was money that they had never previously made. So Nigeria is full of opportunities, but it requires that tenacity. It requires creative thinking. It requires that never say die attitude that Nigerians are born with. And yeah, there's a lot of opportunity. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my goodness. Well, we're going to be taking a couple of questions in a little while. I've got to bring this, to you. Have you ever encountered people who have outlandish ideas? And when I mean outlandish, they've got this lofty ideas, but they're never able to somehow birth them and bring them into reality. And how do you deal with people like that? Are they delusional? Because, some people feel there are those who are out there who just basically build castles in the air. When it comes to taking those thoughts and, turning them into reality here on earth, nothing just seems to be happening. Have you met people like that? And how do you deal with people like that?
Absolutely. I meet them all the time. And my message to them all the time is there is a small size of your big idea. You know what I mean? There is a small size of your big idea. And I think a lot of us don't want to start small. We see the orchard that God has promised us, and we want an orchard as a seed. Every orchard comes as a seed. Every tree first becomes as a seed. So there's a small size of your big idea. You talk about Facebook and the behemoth that it's become, but most people forget that initially it was just a social network for schools, students in schools, and before you know it, they expanded it to say, okay, beyond people in this dorm, let's expand it to the school. Then we've expanded to the school. Let's get other schools integrated, and before you knew it, it became something bigger. So I tell people, investors don't invest in ideas; they invest in successful prototypes. Let me say that again. Investors will never give you money for a good idea. They will invest in successful prototypes. So before you can kill Goliath, you must deal with your lion and you got to deal with your bear. Before you become Prime Minister Joseph, you've got to be faithful, taking the sheep to your brothers and following your brother's trail and being faithful in prison and in Potiphar's house. There's a small size of your big idea. So, you look at the wealthy people of the world, the Elon Musks with Tesla. But before Tesla, there was SpaceX. Before SpaceX, there was Tesla. Before Tesla, there was PayPal, right? And before PayPal, there were a bunch of other things that he had done on a micro level. So hone your gifting, hone your skills. You may not reap what you sow. You may not reap where you sow, but you'll reap what you sow inevitably. You know what I mean? So just recognize that. Like I tell people, if you're not faithful in another man's work, right? For example, even the Bible says, "Who's going to give you yours?" Right? So it's in the faithfulness sometimes of taking Potiphar's business. The Bible says that Potiphar no longer even had to concern himself about the running of his household except what he ate. He just came, ate, and moved on because it was running. The prison warden entrusted the prison to Joseph because he understood administration, human resources, logistics. He understood that. So by the time he got to Pharaoh and he was talking about what he was talking about, he already knew how the supply line was going to work because he had honed his gifting on a small scale. So if you're not going to go that route of honing your skills and testing and keep tweaking and testing, then you just might be deluded. Absolutely.
Wow. A small size of a big idea. I mean, for me, that's the bomb. That's the clincher to that, to that question. Right now, there are a couple of questions that a few of our viewers have put up on the comment box. So we're going to be taking them. Let's have the first question right now. So here's a question from Paul J. So could you comment on the saying talent is universal, but opportunity is not? So that's to you, Steve.
Talent is universal, but opportunity shows up as work. Opportunity shows up as problems. Just a quick example, remember that I said, I was previously an office assistant. Then by the time I got the opportunity to work with Fela, I came in as an office assistant as well. His office was in VGC. I was coming from Yanakwaja every day, and they didn't have a job for me. You know what I mean? I was like, look, he and I knew that, okay, we both had a word, and he was convinced about it as well, but he had no role for me. So here I am, this 2-time college dropout. And I said, look, sir, don't worry about it. I will clean, I will file, I will sweep, whatever. It's just, I will make myself useful. So I was there for the longest as an office assistant. So every morning when I would come, with my education, with my pedigree, with all those things, I would come, I would clean, I would sweep, I would file, I would dust. I wasn't working because there were other consultants. So I wasn't qualified, so to speak. But I remember that every day after the consultants had closed from work, as we were working from his home, I would, stay a little bit later initially. And, because during the day I would observe how they would make proposals or PowerPoint slides or presentations. Then I would, they would leave the computers in the office, and I would stay a little bit later for about an hour. And I would teach myself PowerPoints. I would teach myself how they did the proposals and things like that. Inevitably, I started following them to training. And they would say to me, what's going to happen to the chores at the office? I'm like, no, I've done the chores. I'm good, but just give me an opportunity. And I would come with them. I would hand them registration papers. I would pass out handouts, and I would sit at the back and learn. I didn't want the microphone, because sometimes that's the mistake that people make. You want the microphone. You also want to be visible. I didn't want to be visible. I just wanted to learn. And I would come back home. By this time, I moved into Fela's house. He literally adopted me. So I was living in the BQ with some other boys that he had adopted as well. And I would come back home after the training, and I would go to the bathroom and observe, and run through the training, so to speak, standing in front of the mirror and trying to practice like Fela, the things he said and the things the other consultants did. And long story short, fast forward, one day we get an opportunity. I get an opportunity, but it didn't look like an opportunity. It was a big problem. A client called and they said, "Oh, we thought we reached out to you guys. Sorry about the short notice. You have a training tomorrow. We messed up, but please could you be there?" And I took the call. I was the office assistant, so I took the call. Sent Fela, because Fela was managing an executive retreat for a bank. So I didn't have credit, so I sent him a "please call me." So he called me back and said, "What's the problem?" I said, "Oh, this particular bank has a training. They were supposed to be there." And unfortunately, the other consultants, the 3 major consultants, were at different client sites. So all of the company was busy. Fela was busy. 3 other guys were out of town. And then there was just me. So Fela said, "When I get back home, I'll sort it out." So he comes back home. He says, "What did they say?" I give him the brief. Then he calls some of his friends who are also consultants. And unfortunately for them, unfortunately for me, nobody was available. And I will never forget that day walking to and fro. Fela was like, "Oh my God, what do we do? Because this training is tomorrow. Who do we call?" And I was feeling my boss's pain, that thing about empathy. So he was like, "What do we do?" Me, I was like, "What do we do?" He said, "Who do we call?" I was like, "Who do we call?" Going back and forth. And it was almost like, something hit me upside the head and said, "Boy, this is your opportunity. Take it." So I said to Fela, I said, "Sir." He said, "Yeah." I said, "I was thinking." He said, "Yeah." I said, "This bank." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Let me go." He said, "Eh?" He said, "What'd you say?" I said, "Nothing, sir." He said, "My friend, what did you say?" So I said it again. And then he says to me, "Why do you think you can do it?" And remember, sir, that I said there's a small size of your big idea. And so I said to him, "Well, I followed you to Shell. You gave me 5 minutes to address them, and I did. I followed Daniel to this bank. He gave me 5 minutes, and I did. And I've practiced the slides." He said, "You've practiced the slide?" I said, "Yes." He said, "But you don't have a laptop?" I said, "Yes, but the company does." So I practice at night, and I come here and I look at it. He says, "Okay, bring the laptop," presents to me. Now, because I was very familiar with the contents, I started pitching and presenting. And by the time I was done, he said to me, "Okay, but now we have a bit of a problem, because I'm an office assistant going to train bankers. I don't have a suit or any of those things." Fela goes upstairs, brings me a suit, my very first suit. Tara comes down, hears that this young boy is going to speak. Oh my God. Oh yeah, kneel down. Father, in the name of Jesus, this boy will know yan dust. But that was my opportunity, and it came like a problem. There are problems passing you by every single day. But if you haven't killed the lion, you wouldn't recognize Goliath when you see him. You won't. All the other people will run away. David ran towards the giant. So the problems you've solved in the past will determine the opportunities you run to in the future. That's the only way I can say it. The problems you've dealt with in the past are the ones that when you see the opportunities in the future, you run towards them because you can recognize that, oh, I've been there. This is deja vu. The lion has four legs. The bear has four legs. This Goliath is an animal. He even has two legs. He's even minus two. I can take this guy out. But unfortunately, many people don't see that.
Well, you've also kind of said to us that there is the concept that preparation, when preparation meets opportunity, then miracles happen, and you get
Absolutely.
the leverage you need in life. And so that's your story, because while you were preparing, Fela didn't even know that you were,
Absolutely.
staying back, working the slides, and getting to learn PowerPoint. Awesome, awesome story. Really awesome. Well, here's a second question for you, Steve. So this is from Ross Oscar Adetunji. Good day, sir. Please, how do you place value in your talents? Um, Heil Tega. Okay, so I think the question is, how do you place value on your talents? How do you do that?
Well, your talents are only valuable to those that consider them valuable. You know what I mean? You've got to be able to turn it into a proposition that people would recognize as valuable when they see it. So it's not just to say, oh, you're gifted, but is your gifting valuable to the customers? So I'll give you an example. And it could be anything. You know what I mean? It could be anything. So one of the things I'm incredibly good at is copywriting. Right? I know how to create captions that command attention. But before I'll just oh, this is what I think you should do, and I'll come up with these catchphrases. But after a while, I recognized that wait a second. I started realizing that there was a people were asking me for that value. So people come and meet me and say, "Oh, Steve, can you change that the way I'm selling this hair? I don't think I'm saying it the way I can say it. Can you say it in a better way that will cause people to rush it?" And then I will say something like, "Well, you don't sell hair. You sell hair that turns other people's heads." And they're like, "Oh, mad, or whatever the new phrase is." I'm trying to be hip, but they're like, "Look, you don't sell hair, but you sell hair that turns other people's heads." And I didn't know that that was a gifting or an ability. But when I recognized that people were now willing to pay for it, then I could now place value on it. So you can't place value on something that nobody considers valuable, right? If not, it's just like, oh, please, do you want to buy this sand? Buy sand now. Buy like, no, there's sand around me. I don't need it now. So your value, your talent is only valuable if people that really need it. Remember that I said the bigger the problem, the bigger the solution. The bigger the solution, the greater the value placed on it. The bigger the value, the more money you command. And the more money you command, the bigger the boy or girl you become.
All right. Well, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So we'll take the third question now. And that question is coming from, let's try and find it. Just one moment would get that. Well, Steve, so I mean, you've said so much tonight, and it's really been a loaded time. Um, People do think that getting out of Nigeria into the diaspora naturally means they're going to thrive. We've heard about the brain drain. There's so many people who just are looking for, the next visa out there, next flight if they possibly can. What's your own take? If anyone leaves this country, does it naturally mean they're going to thrive outside the country?
No, no, absolutely not. again, you think about it that Joseph moved from Israel. Well, technically, he was taken as a slave into Egypt, and he did not thrive. He didn't thrive for 14 years because his value, his talents, was not economically viable. He wasn't solving big problems. He wasn't solving things that were urgent and important to those that needed his service. By the time he met up with Pharaoh, he solved a problem that was urgent and important on a national scale, and ultimately he got promoted. So moving from Nigeria to Canada, the US, the UK, wherever you want to go, does not guarantee. In fact, I find that a lot of people who tend to move, um, for whatever reason, because they've come from a society where we're hustling hard. And then they come into a land of what you might call relative comfort or relative ease. What happens is if you go from a place of hustle to relative ease, you begin to become complacent. Because you now recognize that there's no need to work as hard as I used to, because if I do little, I'll get the basic amenities. Therefore, people then begin to, so to speak, dumb down their passions, their strength, their resolve, and they just begin to go with the flow. So everyone has the right to pursue, better opportunities as they consider. But the question is, are you going to be one of the number, or are you bringing something that is urgent and important to those that? Because again, money responds to value. You know what I mean? Money is just currency for value exchange. So the more value you offer, the more money you can earn. But unfortunately, for a lot of people, it's usually the basic bare necessities that we offer value for, and then we get a little compensated. But when you do the exchange rates, you get paid $1,000 a month, and you multiply it times 417. You're like, I'm a big boy in Nigeria now. Yeah, you're a big boy in Nigeria, but at what cost? So it really is the amount of value you add and the problems you solve.
Thank you, Steve. What would you say? So this is probably going to be our last question. What would you say to a young Nigerian student who has discovered his talent while he's an undergrad? And he says, look, I want to drop out of college. I want to be like Steve Harris. I think I know what I should be doing. Should they drop out and probably, author a book as well, from college dropout to billionaire? What would be your counsel to someone out there?
My counsel to you is don't be a fool, stay in school. You know what I'm saying? Don't be a fool, stay in school. Because look, for every 500 dropouts, there's one Steve Harris. I am the exception. You know what I mean? I am the exception. I am an incredibly motivated individual. I'm incredibly educated. So I may not have the value of the paper, but I've got the grit, I've got the hustle, I've got the ideas, I've got the creative, I've got the good looks and the charm too. You know what I mean? But my point really is no. You didn't pay for that education, your folks did. So give them what belongs to them. Give it to them. Give them the degree. You found yourself. Congratulations. You're way ahead of the curve than many of the kids that are in your league. So, but you didn't pay for that. That's your parents' money. So and the point is, going through formal institutions teaches you a lot beyond just the degree. It teaches you stuff like being accountable. It teaches you things like networking, relationship management. It teaches you if you join a fellowship, for example, and you become a leader, it teaches you human resource management. It teaches you logistics. It teaches you motivation, how to galvanize people. When you go and, for example, you're in a club or you're in a fellowship or whatever, and you have to evangelize to people, it teaches you skills like working under pressure. It teaches you things like public speaking. You will not get it when you drop out of school. You just notice that a lot of your foundation is half done, and unfortunately a lot of our education is half done. So if you go through half done education with half done whatever, you're not even cooked at all. But my point really is this: don't be a fool. You know what I mean? Stay in school, get that degree, and don't forget, I didn't drop out because I wanted. The first time I didn't drop out because I wanted to. They kicked me out. Hello, get the word. I have the book. The book is here. They kicked me out. Did you get? Then the second time, I dropped out of school. And again, the reasons are many, but ultimately, I could have been a dishwasher. I could have been a bus driver. I could have been any of those things. And remember, don't forget, when I left school, remember I told you I was an office assistant 2 times. I'm a two-time college dropout, two-time office assistant, which means that if I finish school, I'll probably come out with a 2-2. That's what I like to think. But I was an office assistant, and dropping out of school could only give me, I was not even qualified to attend interviews. It was that bad. I was not qualified. Let me give you an example, sir, and I promise I'm not going to, dilly-dally. I got an opportunity. My sister invited me to, she left her banking job and eventually got to start flying. And so she said, oh, this particular airline is recruiting. They're looking for cabin crew, flight attendants. You might as well go. And the qualification was a first degree. I didn't have one. But I just said to myself, you know what? It's not what you don't have that limits you. It's what you have, but you don't know how to use. Let me shall go. So I go into this interview, pretend like I'm supposed to be there. I join the crowd, join the rabble, join the noise. I join them. I write a test. I do the written test. I do the oral test. Out of about 200 or 300 of us that were there, I was shortlisted among 20 people, right? And they gave us numbers 1 to 20, and I was number 1. So they said, number 1, go to the interview with the head of human resources. So I go into the office. The head of human resources tells me, all right, so, tell me about yourself. Now, that's not the place to come and say, oh, my name is Steve Harris. I'm from Delta State. My mother is this. My father is this. That's not what they're asking you. They're asking you, what value do you bring to the table? And I started telling them about the value that I could bring to the table. And 5 minutes into the interview, sir, the HR guy says to me, oh, you're exactly what we need. You know what? Give me your papers. Give me your papers. That's when I announced that paper. I don't have it. He was like, what do you mean? I said, I don't have it. He said, did you forget it at home? I said, no, I didn't bring it. He said, didn't you know you're supposed to bring your paper? I said, I dropped out of school. He said, what? I said, sir, I didn't graduate. He said, He said, I'm so sorry, but company policy says unless you have a first degree, we can't hire you. This interview is over. Do you get? So it had to take God, right, to just arrange me with someone who didn't care about my lack of qualifications, and then taught me to prove, taught me the ropes, showed me the ropes. And today, Steve Harris is an authority, and no one cares that I don't have a college degree. Do you get what I'm saying? But they don't care because I am someone. If I was not someone, they will care. So don't be a fool. Stay in school. Take it from someone who knows.
Wow, Steve, what a power-packed evening. And unfortunately, we're going to have to come to the end of this conversation.
This is so much fun. I love your questions, sir. You are perhaps one of the most amazing interviewers. You just put me at ease. I don't know how you, well, I know how you did it, but you just put me at ease. You are amazing. So
I think there's a deep connection somewhere, and it's a spiritual one as well. You're a blessing to so many people, and I'd want you to take probably the next 3, 4, 5 minutes and just tell us, the different programs you have, the online resources you have, because I know there are people out there who are going to say, look, I want to connect with Steve. How do I, join an online course, master, the business of my talent and all of that. So you've got the floor. So just let us know, and we'll take it from there.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I don't take it for granted. If you're looking to reach me, and you should, you can follow me on Instagram at I am Steve Harris. That's IAMSTEVEHARRIS. Right? I am Steve Harris. My website is iamsteveharris.com. I do have a bunch of things going on. You can get my books, From College Dropout to Corporate Sellout. This is one of my books. Let me see. I got 2 more. Hold on a second. I got 2 more. Yeah. So I got 3 books right now. From College Dropout to Corporate Sellout, my very first book. For the ladies, I have this one called From Friend to Fiance: How to Get Him to Want You Without Letting Him Know That You Want Him to Want You. I'm going to say that again. How to Get Him to Want You Without Letting Him Know That You Want Him to Want You. And my third book is called Honey, Why Are We Poor? Poverty Has Evolved, Drives a Car, Lives in a Nice Part of Town, but Poverty is Broke. Right, so you can get all that on my website. My Mastering the Business of Your Talent program registration is closed at the moment. The next one is possibly in June or in October. I'm not too sure. We haven't confirmed, but either June or October. But information is always on my page for that one. Then I have something that I'm working on, which is going to open in March for, single ladies. It's called Love University. And really, it's still the proposition of this book, how to get him to want you without letting him know you want him to want you. Because a lot of ladies say to me, we're all the good guys, but sometimes the problem is the good guys don't like bad girls like you. So we gotta tweak that. All right. So that's what I'm about. Yes, it will be an honor to connect with you. I am Steve Harris on Instagram. I am Steve Harris on Twitter. I do not do Facebook, but it's fine.
Awesome, Steve. Can't thank you enough. I'm sure that, there's so many comments out there. I wish we had time. We could just, put out what the audience, is saying. And it just has been an awesome and impactful time. And I'm hopeful that sometime in the future, we'll connect again and bring you to the conversation. Thank you so much for honoring the invitation and for being such an awesome blessing. It's been tremendous and impactful. Thank you, Steve Harris. Thank you.
Thank you for the privilege. Thank you, sir.
Bless you. Well, guys, what do we say about tonight? I don't know about you, but I'm going straight on to IamSteveHarris, .com and just connect with him on Twitter, Instagram. Tonight has been tremendous. And this is one man that you all need to connect with. You can master the business of your talent. And there's so much else you can learn from him. Like you said, the resources are out there and it will do you a lot of good just to plug in and improve yourself and move exponentially. It's been a joy and a privilege hosting the conversation tonight. We look forward to the next conversation, which is going to be next week, Thursday, and that promises to be an impactful time as well. With great joy, have a wonderful evening. I'm Sola Adesoye, the host of The Conversation. God bless you. Have a wonderful evening. When trust is broken, what should people do in terms of rebuilding it?
Yeah, there's a recovery path. The thing about trust is it's difficult once it's broken to put together, but with enough concerted effort and willingness on the part of both parties.
Both parties.
Yes, there can be some level of repair. Now, when it comes to cheating, when a man cheats with another man, it's bad, right? But a woman will find that easier, in a sense, to handle than when a man cheats with another woman.
Really? Why,
yes.
why is that?
Because sometimes the men are not going, in this society, we do a lot. We have a lot of cover-up. There's this culture of secrecy, culture of silence. There's a lot of cover-up. And most women who want to keep their homes, there's some women who want to keep their homes at every expense. And they know that the man is not likely to leave his home to go and set up a home with another man. But if he's cheating with a woman, that might mean the end of the marriage because he could leave his home to go set up home with the other woman. When a woman cheats with another woman, most men wink at it. They don't find it as upsetting as when a woman cheats them with another man. Yes, they feel it's upsetting, but to them it's not as big a deal because there's something in a man. It's not just about the fact that you cheated. There's something innate in him that makes him think that, look, you've trespassed. Another man has trespassed where he ought not to trespass. There's
the territorial
thing. So it's more noticeable when he's with another man than when he's with a woman. For some women, cheating with another man is a deal breaker. When the man cheats with a man, is a deal breaker. They are not even willing to negotiate or to think of repairing any sort of thing in that marriage. So it depends on the parties involved and what they hold most sacred.
The Conversation keeps you in touch with the realities of life links you with the greatest minds around the world and leaves you better off than when you joined it. Don't miss it for anything. Join the conversation bi-monthly on the social media channels showing on your screen. Leverage, a word in tune with the frequency of the Spirit, heralding a change in the scheme of things. A new order, a new day. Leverage, the platform to engage the future. The moment has come for you to engage, connect, and rise.